From Scott Williams jumping to his airness defense, to a new development related to Scottie's ex-wife making things way worse. Here's what Michael Jordan's former teammate said about Scottie Pippen's horrible comments. The former Chicago Bulls player didn't mince words when he came after Jordan in 2021. And since then, things have only gotten worse. But luckily for MJ, his entourage of loyal fans and buddies is here to support him through all of this. In fact, another Bulls alum jumped to MJ's defense, letting Pippen know what everyone really thought of his comments. During his appearance on Rockin' Manic with Jimmy B, Scott was asked about the heated situation between the two players. The man tried to stay diplomatic, but you could clearly see little hints of how he really felt about the whole deal. To quote the man himself, "I'm dumbfounded, flabbergasted, and any other adjective that you want to throw in there." According to Scott, he likes to keep his distance when the Hall of Famer gets into fights, but he was really shocked this time around. As for who's the better teammate, Scott couldn't just pick one of them. At first, he tried to keep everything lighthearted, hoping he won't have to fend off Pippen and Jordan's larger-than-life fan bases after he finished the interview. Scott made sure to mention that he loved them both and that playing with them had been awesome. And when it came to teammates, both were great, but different. According to the former basketball player, Michael Jordan was a different style of teammate and motivator. Scott said he'd try to stay in his lane here because he loved playing with both of them back in his NBA days. But, oh yes, there's a but here. If he had to pick someone, it'll probably be Jordan since the champ was better at staying in contact than Pippen. Was this a simple thought or a veiled shot at Pippen? I guess we'll never know. But guys, there's one thing. This whole situation is making Scott really sad. That makes sense, guys. After all, he had a front seat ticket to the show. According to Scott, it seems to be more one-sided with Pippen right now. Still, the man hopes both the legends can think of ways to put this all behind them, and that Scottie can pick up a phone and straighten things out with MJ. Now that's something we would all love, but the chances of that happening are pretty slim. You know, with Scottie's ex-wife Larsa Pippen's new love interest. The 49-year-old found love with Jordan's 32-year-old son Marcus, which drove everyone into a gossip frenzy. But that's something we'll be talking about later. Let's talk about what exactly Scottie had to say about his ex-teammate. During an interview with the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast, the Chicago Bull alum was asked who he thought was the GOAT of basketball. Of course, Scottie didn't say MJ, or else you and I wouldn't be here right now. Instead, he threw his weight behind LeBron James, saying he'll be the greatest statistical guy to ever play basketball. As for Jordan, Scottie thinks he's a horrible, horrible player. Well, I know a couple million people who'd like to disagree with him. Pippen also mentioned that Jordan wasn't the best teammate out there since the guy was always shooting bad shots and was all one-on-one. This debate stirred up quite a big debate across social media, with NBA fans trying to settle who was the true GOAT of the NBA world. Now, these comments about Jordan aren't something new. Previously, Scottie had claimed that MJ ruined basketball, but before this, he'd been quiet about his feelings for the player for a long time. Chances are that the media frenzy surrounding Larsa and Marcus didn't sit well with him, so he let out his frustration by taking a shot at MJ. But there's one thing I bet has got all of you confused about what started the feud between the two of them. Well, I've got some explanations right here for you. Scottie thinks that MJ turned the docuseries The Last Dance into a one-man show when it should have also focused more on the other teammates. Pippen also didn't like how everyone glorified Jordan, and no one really gave him or the other teammates the credit they deserved. According to him, Jordan deserves a large portion of the blame since he had a ton of editorial control. I guess he makes a point here since even the description says Michael Jordan and his teammates. That must have made Scottie feel like he belonged in the background. Did you know he hasn't talked to his airness since the docuseries aired? Still, even in The Last Dance, Jordan had some pretty sweet things to say about Pippen. MJ said, "I didn't win without Scottie, and that's why I consider him my best teammate of all time." According to Jordan, whenever they speak Michael Jordan, they should speak Scottie Pippen. After all this time, people are getting tired of all the drama that Pippen seems to be lugging around. And while Scott took a pretty diplomatic approach, Others weren't so kind. Charles Barkley, another former teammate and ex-friend of MJ, said all of this was a publicity stunt. According to him, Pippen started the beef as big game hunting to sell his memoir. He also said that Scottie should have chosen the mature way to deal with all this, and addressed all this in a live setting. If Chucky is saying this, then I think it's really time for Pippen to change his ways. Cause Barkley has had a feud of his own going on with MJ, and as you'd expect, he's pretty open about it, and I don't think he'll publish a book about it soon. Apart from this, the former NBA coach, Stan Van Gundy, thinks seeing someone as great as Scottie grow so bitter is super sad. Another former Chicago Bulls teammate, Charles Oakley, chimed in saying that there was no way Pippen could be as good as MJ ever. The difference in their stats was enough for their fans to understand his point. Most NBA fans also seem to agree with the opinions I just mentioned. Some even went as far as saying that, without MJ, no one would even know who Scottie was. Others mentioned that Pippen's take that the docuseries slandered him was extremely wrong, since MJ went out of his way to give him credit. One fan noted that it was time both of them picked up the phone, got wasted on the golf course, and moved on from the whole drama. Cause all this sideline chirping wasn't gonna take Pippen anywhere. Instead, it'll only be tarnishing his own legacy. Some commented that MJ was the NBA star at the time, and was always dominating the court with or without Scottie. In the end, many suggested that the two should suit up once again and play a friendly one-on-one, just to patch things up. That's definitely a good way to fix things, right? But with the way things are going on right now, Pippen might be removing any possible reconciliation with Jordan from his to-do list. Yup, I'm talking about the younger Jordan dating his ex-wife. Larsa has been adamant that their families are on board with the relationship, but with Jordan's recent public disapproval of the union, people don't know whose side to believe. In all fairness, Marcus did come out with an explanation, saying that his dad was only kidding, but I'll go on a limb and say the damage had already been done. On top of this, many believe that Jordan's disapproval was a veiled shot at his ex-buddy. You know, telling everyone that the girl Scottie spent 20 years of his life with wasn't good enough for his son. Well, if that's true, then it's a little harsh, don't you think? On top of this, we still don't know what Scottie's take on the relationship is. Right now, things seem to be going very well for the two lovebirds, and who knows, if things work out, we might soon be hearing wedding bells, which would link the two in a very odd way. But maybe, an awkward relationship is all they need to fix things between them. So, there you have it. From some new developments related to Scottie's ex-wife making things way worse, to Scott Williams jumping to his heiress's defense. That's all for what MJ's teammates had to say about Scottie Pippen's horrible comments.